Welcome back, Ayonyu Megami here, and this is the second episode of Pokemon Myths and Legends. In this series, we will explore the various legends surrounding the myriad of Pokemon of the universe created by Arceus, in the hope of discovering more about the relationship between mankind and Pokemon. In the previous video, we talked about the Winter King Articuno. Today, we will cross the border to the west to go into the Johto region to find out more about the Volcano Pokemon Entei. Disclaimers: this video is only for entertainment purpose only, and it wasn't made to speculate on the official lore of present or future Pokemon games. Since the concept of the multiverse was already introduced in Pokemon, you can view this video as an alternative universe where things went differently from the official timeline. Also, I will be using character placeholders from various media to make the video more engaging. With that said, hope you guys enjoy the video. Ok Dialga, prossima fermata, Johto. Entei is a Johtian legendary Pokemon, guardian deity of volcanoes and an emissary of Ho-Oh. Alongside Raikou and Saikun, he was one of the Pokemon resurrected by Ho-Oh after perishing in the Great Fire of Anju. Entei represented the flame that burned the Brass Tower. Ever since returning to life, the three have been in constant motion, racing around the globe in order to monitor the environment and also to discharge their enormous power. The sacred beasts usually ran across immense prairies, tundras, and deserts. The sacred beasts were extremely elusive Pokemon, and they were on constant mission to monitor the planet and prevent calamities. Entei monitored the volcanoes and the subsoil, controlling the volcanic activities and the movement of the tectonic plates, occasionally fighting heat run. He also suppressed wildfires and mitigated damage caused by volcanic eruptions. Entei is always on the move, and there seems to be no place where he stays for long. In the rare moment in which he interrupts his activity of monitoring the planet, Entei returns to the Burn Tower or takes refuge in volcanic craters to quench his thirst with lava. When hungry, he feeds on coal and hot embers. He was described as being powerful as an erupting volcano. He was a Pokemon capable of creating explosive blasts, spitting lava and flame hotter than magma. Furthermore, he was also capable of generating pyrotherapeutic flames, capable of burning wounds and soothing pains. This power was considered a divine gift bestowed upon him after his miraculous reincarnation. The stories of the sacred beast healing powers inspired many terminally sick and war-wounded to make annual pilgrimage to Anju in the hope of encountering these legendary beasts. And lastly, Entei also had the ability to read the intention of living things through infrared vision. The Brass Tower incident took place during the tragic Great Fire of Anju, a devastating event that resulted in the extensive property damage and loss of life both among humans and Pokemon. It was estimated that at least 1,000 individuals perished during that dreadful night. The Brass Temple Tower, the only place of worship and learning dedicated to Lugia, was tragically engulfed in flame after being struck by a stray lightning. The lightning strike ignited a fire that quickly spread throughout the tower. The flame ended up being carried by the wind and sending the fire to the western end of the city. Lugia, who was away from the tower when the incident occurred, quickly returned to his nest. With his power, he then summoned a torrential downpour that drenched the flame, bringing an end to the destructive fire. Unfortunately, the flame claimed the life of many humans and Pokemon already, including 3 sick Pokemon that were being taken care of within the tower at the time of the accident. Burdened by the sight of his now ruined tower and the sorrow of the human and Pokemon, Lugia, overwhelmed with anguish, abandoned the city, never to return again. Ho-Oh, sensing the immense tragedy that had taken place in the city of Anju, returned to the holy city, and upon witnessing the aftermath of the fire, Ho-Oh performed a miraculous act of resurrection. The 3 dead Pokemon were not only brought back to life, but they were also imbued with the collective soul of the victim of the Great Fire. Through this miraculous fusion of soul, the sacred beasts were born. This majestic Pokemon embodied the different elements involved that night. The lightning that struck the tower, the fire that was unleashed from it, and the rain that brought an end to it all. The three beasts were the living testimony to Ho-Ho's divine power. Following the devastating fire, it was decided that the tower will not be rebuilt, leaving the Tin Temple Tower the sole remaining tower in Entei. There are so many speculations about what was the identity of Entei in his previous life. The main consensus is that he was a sick fire-type Pokemon, which the Kimono priestess were taking care of. Many sources agree that he was a Flareon alongside his sibling, a Jolteon and a Vaporeon. Some other legitimated accounts declare that he was either a Growlithe, a Vulpix, or a Houndour. Less accredited sources stated that the three sacred beasts originally didn't have the element of lightning, fire, and water, and that those elements were bestowed upon them after their reincarnation. This additional notion expands the possibility to other Pokemon such as Meowth, Persian, Snowball, Granbull, and Eevee. The matter of the incident and the identity of the Pokemon that perished inside the tower are still shrouded in mystery to this day, creating many different stories around it. The Beast Trio took part in the long expedition, in which they assisted the founding hero of modern Johto, Kinshiro, in his war against the last remnant of the Alpian Empire. Kinshiro's military accounts were collected in his diaries and later published as the Long Expedition, in which the founder's exploits were mythologized for propaganda reasons. Kinshiro encountered the Sacred Beast while praying to Ho-Oh for the success of his mission at Angel's Bell Temple Tower. During his prayer, he saw three shadows stealthily sneak into the burned tower. Together with his two friends, Minato and Sanzukiri, they went to the burned tower to investigate the furtive figures. The Wandering Beast introduced themselves to the three and told them that the Heart Gold Pokemon himself had decided to welcome the young monk's prayers and desired to test him in a trial. The trial for the three was to chase and capture the three elusive wanderers within 12 days. For this mission, the beast gave Kinshiro three black chains created by the unknown, with which he could capture them. The legendary Pokemon then dispersed across Johto, starting the trial. Entei was the first emissary to be defeated and captured by Kinshiro with the black chain in the 8th day. The clashes with Entei took place near Mount Mortar, near Anju. After capturing Entei, the legendary Pokemon was entrusted to Sanzu, who was an expert in Fire-type and Ghost-type Pokemon. Since he was a member of the Kiri clan, whose role was to raise the Cyndaquil family line Pokemon for the Imperial family. After completing the ordeal, Kinshiro, now supported by these powerful allies, finally began his revolution against the decaying Alphian Empire. After the decisive battle of Fusube, Kinshiro was mortally wounded and on the verge of dying. Kinshiro's lover Akari and his friend tearfully begged the legendary beast to save their beloved one life. Moved by the grief of the girl, Entei infused all of his life force into his pyrotherapeutic flames that engulfed Kinshiro. In doing so, he sacrificed himself. However, before going out like a flame, Entei emits a roar that caused the eruption of Mount Silver. From that eruption, a new Entei was born and he immediately reunited with the group. After winning the civil war, Kinshiro paraded the Wandering Beast throughout the region in a display of power. The people welcomed Kinshiro as the new undisputed leader of the region, chanting his glories. And the few opponents of Kinshiro had to begrudgingly accept the new ruler. After the war, Kinshiro released the legendary beast, thanking them for their effort by organizing rituals and Pokeathlon in their honors, making them an intrinsic aspect of Jotian mythology and culture. After their endeavor, the beasts returned to their monitoring duties. While many events described in the book were based on real events, Kinshiro took the liberty of exaggerating some passages in order to bestow upon himself an aura of divinity. A striking example was the sacrifice of Entei. According to Kinshiro's narrative, Entei sacrificed himself to save his life, and in doing so, he caused the eruption of Mount Silver, from which a reincarnated Entei emerged. However, the chronicles of the time and today's studies deny an eruption of the mountain in that period. Other interpretations state that the death and rebirth of Entei were not to be taken literally, but more as an allegory of Johto. The legendary Pokemon was supposed to represent the rebirth of the region as a new, younger republic after the dissolution of the strong but old Alfian Empire. In the Bunraku Puppet Theater, the characters based on the sacred beast were a recent addition to the Bunraku tradition, and their lore was exclusive to Enju's Bunraku tradition. The character of Enterongu was based on the Volcano Pokemon. Enterongu was the strong-willed servant of Fenikoho, and together with his master and two other companions, they traveled around Johto to defeat warlords and restore peace in the region. Enterongu shared with his comrade the characteristic of having long hair, which in his case released volcanic smokes. Like Entei, this character was also able to spit magma and volcanic ashes. The Jotonese army helmet, called Kaburok, was inspired by the crown of Entei. The helmet was adopted by the new Jotian army soon after its founding. It became famous during the Great World War, as it was worn by the soldiers of the Free Johto movement, fighting the Cantonese invaders to liberate their region. The Kaburok was often worn in national ceremonies by figures of authority, such as the war hero Jin Rogane, who kept wearing it even after the end of the war, during his role as Prime Minister of the Republic. After the war, the headgear lost its military use and assumed a symbolic value instead, while the Jotian army switched to more modern and practical helmets. The Konohana was an ancient funerary ritual in which a widowed wife immolated herself in her husband's funeral pyre as a sign of fidelity and loyalty. The ritual was widespread among the aristocracy of the Alfian society. There was a lot of pressure on widowed noblewomen to take part in this ritual. One of the challenges of the new government formed by King Chiro was to prohibit practices considered harmful and antiquated as the like of the Konohana. For this purpose, the government made use of a legend called the Guardian of Satyana. Satyana was the daughter of a bureaucrat of Enju. One day, Satyana met Agniji Kiri, member of the influent Kiri clan, and the two of them fall in love, deciding to get married. The marriage between the two was idyllic, culminating in the birth of their son Hinori. Unfortunately, the happiness of the two did not last long, as Agniji passed away during an hunting trip. Upon Agniji's death and the agreement of both families, Satyana should have immolated herself on her husband's funeral pyre. Satyana opposed the decision, as she didn't want to leave her still infant son completely orphan. Satyana objected in vain and attempted to escape with her son countless times days before the funeral, but every escape attempt ended up failing. On the fateful day, after yet another failed escape attempt, a desperate Satyana prostrated herself, begging Ho-Ho to save her in tears. When the time for the ritual arrived, Satyana was put to sleep with a drug. Then, her body was carried to the pyre, where she was then thrown in. The moment Satyana came into contact with the fire, the flames were rendered harmless by the divine intervention of Ho-Ho. Then, the flames surrounding the maiden came to life, taking the visual form first of Agniji and then of a giant quadruped creature, frightening the present. Agniji told those present to leave his wife and son alone, and warned that anyone who harmed them will face his fury. The flame then extinguishes on themselves, leaving Satyana unharmed in the cold charcoal. She reunites with her son and continues to live, raising him to be a proud monk just like his father. Kinchiro, like many historians, theologians, and scholars before and after him, personified the half-fire and half-Pokemon figure with the legendary Entei. Kinchiro then used this legend to abolish the practice of Konohana at a regional level. Entei was venerated alongside Saikun and Raikou not only by the Himeruists but also by the Jashonists. Jashonism was a Himeruist denomination that venerated Ho-Ho as the Holy Supreme Legendary Deity of the Jotian region. and the sacred beasts were venerated as his messengers. The Jashunists were popular in Enju, Kogane, and Koji. According to the Jashunists, Entei was a chthonic deity and personification of fire, volcanoes, summer heat, strength, justice, protection, courage, and cremation. Linked to cremation rituals, Entei also had the role of a psychopomp, who guided the soul of the deceased toward the afterlife. He was also considered the guardian of the gate of the underworld, preventing the dead from leaving. In the Jotian mythology, the craters of volcanoes were considered to be portals connecting the world of the living with the underworld. Volcanic activities such as eruptions were thought to be a mass of souls trying to escape the underworld, which then Entei scared them into going back, which is potent roars. The Entei of the Jashunist tradition took on this role by absorbing elements belonging to other Pokemon linked to the afterlife in the Himeruist religion, such as Hundum, Arcanine, and Granbull. With the advent of pantheonism in Johto, the Jotian legendary Pokemon were all absorbed in the world religion, including the cult of the Holy Emissaries. In pantheonism, Entei was considered the minor fire and volcanic deity, living personification of magma and loyal subordinate of Huhu. Being a recent addition in Jotian mythology, many Orthodox Himeruists deny the divinity of the sacred beast, despite their extraordinary powers, considering them pseudo-legendary Pokemon at best. Whereas more progressive Himeruists recognize the sacred beasts as divine messengers of Huhu, therefore part of the Himeruist pantheon. Entei has the epithet of Shogun of Volcanoes. After their sanctification as protector of Johto by the hand of Kinshiro, shrines dedicated to the beast trio were built all over the region. Entei shrines were often built on appendages of mountains and volcanoes as protection against violent eruption and landslides. This peculiar tradition will later spread to other regions as well, like Kanto and Kitakami. Curiously enough, there was also a shrine dedicated to Entei on the feet of the Chinaraba volcano. Although this did not prevent the destruction of the island in 1999. Today, the cult of the tree is kept alive by both the Jashunists, the tragic tale of the burned tower, and by the Religious and Cultural Institute of Enju. Once again, we have completed our journey into the myths and history of the Pokemon world. I hope you found the legend of Entei and the event related to him interesting. If you too also have stories about the god of the volcanoes, let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future. Also please, help me reach 100 subscribers by the end of this month. With that said, until we meet again, farewell.